Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new week, Houston Sports Weekly, our weekly podcast on KPRC 2 Plus and click2houston.com. Approaching a year of doing these. We appreciate the following and listening or watching wherever you're checking these out each and every Friday when they drop. I'm Randy McAvoy alongside Ari Alexander. A lot to get to today. A little bit later, conversation with Aaron Wilson after the OTA workout that the media was allowed to attend to this past week or during the week earlier, and get his takes as well on what he saw. Chancellor was with us. We'll get to that a little bit later in segment 2. And in this segment, though, Ari and I are going to talk a little bit about everything, including we're going to have some sound from C.J. Stroud, who spoke for the first time the other day at the Texans OTA workout. Once a week we're allowed out there, so we won't be able to go back out there. I think Wednesday maybe might be the day next week,
something like that.
So let's start though with Astros. Let's jump into the Astros because as people are checking this out today, Ari, the road trip continues in Oakland. Hopefully another series win or a sweep in Oakland. A little disappointing after that first win in Milwaukee. They let it get away those last two.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like all the hits got out of those bats after the first day, put up 12 runs, and everything was great. And they do this from time to time where they'll just explode for a bunch of runs because we know this is one of the best lineups in baseball, or at least it can be fairly consistently. And, last year, quite a bit, you'd see these games where they'd win 4-1, 4-3, they'd lose 5-2, and then just suddenly 13-2, and then they would, rip off a bunch of hits. We haven't seen that this year. I think it was the first real just whooping that they put on a team.
Yep.
And then I thought it was odd that they followed it up by getting shut out back-to-back times by they crushed Corbin Burnes, who's a Cy Young winner, who has recently been one of the better pitchers in baseball, though since last year's All-Star break, he's been a little bit down from what he was. But these guys are like Adrian Hauser is just like a guy. Colin Ray it's funny, he's kind of from where I'm from. He's from Cascade, Iowa. So when I was growing up playing high school baseball, he was like one of the kids who was really, really good.
Yeah.
And he was out of baseball for years. He had this bad elbow, issue resulting from Tommy John surgery, and he was out of baseball for 3 years, and he went to Korea and came back. And those guys are shutting out the Astros when they killed Corbin Burnes.
They just suddenly go quiet. I'm with you. That first game against Milwaukee, Yordan Alvarez went nuts with 5 RBIs, and Jolks hit a home run.
Yeah, Jolks was great.
Yeah, I can't remember all the storylines from that night, but Fromber was big out there. Wasn't Fromber in that first game?
Fromber was back home.
Was that home? Who threw the first?
Javier. And
Christian
then,
Javier. You're right.
It's funny because they lost the last 2 games of the series when they have their 2 starters who shouldn't be starting, Bielak and France. Yeah. But it wasn't either their fault.
No,
I know Bielak, gave up a few home runs, but he went 6 2/3, 4 runs is fine.
His best outing.
France 5 2/3 gave up 2 runs. He was good, and you're losing because you can't hit when your guys, your starting pitchers, the back end, who's not really supposed to be there, they're doing their job perfectly fine.
We seems like we talk about it weekly, but it's got everybody. The fans are starting to get a little continue to be frustrated with Jose Abreu, and what does this team do? But you bottom line, first step is hey, they just signed this guy. You can't just go see him on the bench. He's got to work it out. They're not going to send him to Sugarland. But what Dusty can do is more consistently is decide, okay, for now, do we need to quit putting him in the cleanup spot and more regularly move him down? I think you have to.
Well, so
until he figures it out.
Yeah, the way that Dusty has been kind of describing whether or not he puts him in the cleanup spot or he's in this series he put him at 5 below Yordan and Tucker was how many left-handed relievers does the opposite team have? So the A's have a bunch apparently. So Abreu gets stuck in between the 2 left-handed hitters. The problem is that Tucker hits lefties. Yordan is arguably the best lefty versus lefty hitter in baseball, and it doesn't really make any sense. And I like Dusty a lot personally, and I know that he knows so much about the game, but sometimes the old school mentality of we got to protect the lefties. Yeah, it's no, these specific guys crush lefties. It's fine.
You can always come back to it because even Jeff Bagwell on the broadcast, he was actually on the broadcast in Milwaukee for maybe the whole series. I'm not sure, but he was behind the signing of Jose Abreu, and even the legend and Mr. Astro himself is getting criticized right now. Okay, he and Jim Crane were making these decisions. Did they sign a guy who was washed up? And he said on the broadcast, he said, "Give it." I'm verbatim, I'm not exactly what he said, but the gist of it was give Abreu time. He's going to snap out of it. I'm not real convinced that's going to happen.
Yeah, well,
His best days are way behind.
50 games into the season. Once we hit 54, that means you are a third way through the season, and he hasn't hit a home run. This is a guy who won MVP 3 years ago. I know his power was down last year, but his exit velocity was fine.
It's like a rapid decline, though.
Yeah, he went he aged 30 years in 1 year. He's behind on fastballs, and that's the biggest thing you see. Where I keep using this, we talk about this all the time. Nelson Cruz last year was bad, but he wasn't behind on fastballs. He was just missing breaking balls or whatever. And then this year he's back and he's fine because he had the eye vision issue fixed. Abreu's behind on fastballs. You can't be behind on fastballs.
And for a guy like him, and you look at him, big power, what used to be a power hitter guy. I'm not seeing him pull anything either. It seems like he always slaps it to right field, right center when he does get a hit. Very rarely is he pulling the ball, but I'm concerned about that and what they can do at that position and in the lineup to maybe give him time, just take a little bit of pressure off because he's obviously pressing. He won't be vocal about it, but they've got to do something, even if it's for a few weeks. Just move him down, let him figure it out. A little bit further down the lineup, and just make do because I think they'll still get results like you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, you can bring up. Well, the problem is that you technically could move up Pena to 2, but Pena's also not hitting, and he fits into that 2 spot fairly well, but he's kind of up and down, and he's had stretches where he'll go 0 for 11, 0 for 12. He's hitting 240 right now. Sometimes he's really good in that 2 hole, and they have him slotted in that 6-7 right now just because he's not quite hitting, which is fine. But if Pena starts getting going, you can move him into 2. You can maybe drop Bregman down to 5, then you move Abreu to 6. You can put Bregman at 3, and you can move Jordan and Tucker to 4-5. There are ways to drop Abreu in the lineup, but some of it does, you do need a little help from Pena. Start get him going. Maybe you can stick him there too.
All right, let's talk about for at least 2-3 minutes. I want to get to the C.J. Stroud sound eventually too. The whole talk on the Rockets right now. Now that the season's over for James Harden, there's still that buzz out there. Will he land in Houston? Pat Beverly said on his own podcast he believes Harden will, and he believes he'll be here too. Pat Beverly, which by the way I think would be fans love Pat Beverly when he was here last time.
Well, it makes sense. He lives here,
but he was convinced they're both going to be coming. Good move or bad move? That's the question right now. Is he's definitely not the James Harden he used to be, but he's still pretty good.
I think in the long run, it doesn't necessarily matter. The way that I look at it, if you're a team like the Rockets, where you're in a big market, where you have a legitimate chance of drawing free agents and winning championships, there are 1 or 2 outcomes. Either you're contending for a title, or you're terrible, right? So and then everything in between is just whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So James Harden is in between. He's not quite good enough to lead you to a title. He's probably too good for your team to be terrible. So it's just one of those in between. So having a strong opinion on it, doesn't do anything for me, right? Is he the best person that they could get out of, whoever? He could trade for Kevin Durant or what, all these moves that aren't actually going to happen. Right. No, but is it like a complete disaster where having James Harden here for 4 years is going to tie up the Rockets so bad that 4 years from now they're not going to be able to put the pieces together and compete for a title? Also, probably not. Are you going to ruin Jalen Green's development? No.
Does he deserve? You've heard the dialogue out there too that he wants a 4-year deal, right?
Yeah.
Should teams commit 4 years to him? Can they get him for 2?
Probably. I mean, they probably shouldn't.
So what would it cost him?
But Harden kind of has the leverage on some of these teams, so you probably shouldn't give him 4 years at the max. Mm-hmm. But if that's what it takes to get Harden for at least 2 good years or whatever, then that's what you have to do, and you just have to deal with it on the back end.
I do wonder. Okay, say they make this move. What are and again, you can't run your team based on what the fans think. I get that part, but when he left, I mean, he wasn't really held in high regard. The way he exited Houston, how would he be welcomed back by the fan base? And my other part to that is, I don't know if you've heard the podcast that Jalen Green was on. He was asked about Harden, and he was like 50-50, okay, maybe this would help a little bit, but we are a young team, and we need to learn on our own, so on and so forth. He wasn't wild about James Harden.
Which is funny because James and Jalen have a good relationship.
Yeah.
And they go on Adidas trips together and they know each other pretty well.
Did you find that interesting, though? That
I did.
wasn't like gung-ho about it, which is like, okay.
Which is surprising because
they listen to him.
Yeah, it's surprising because they know each other really well. I don't know. I think if you want James Harden, you're going to have to pay the price for James Harden and deal with it on the back end. We'll see. The way that I talk to everyone in basketball, they all act like it's just going to happen. Like it's done.
Like it's done, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been like, it seems like you've been hearing that, and we've been hearing for
months.
a couple of months, yeah.
It's like December, yeah.
I don't know, man. I just wonder the influence he would have. From my take covering him, he was a me first guy. Did he deliver and bring him to a high level? Absolutely. Did he do great in the playoffs? Not when it counted most. He would lay an egg on these big games. I just wonder, with his style, what influence he'll have on these young guys, and if so, is it going to be a positive influence, or is it going to bring them down and set them back?
Can it get much worse, though? Because you've had Steven Silas mismanaging this team for the last few years.
I get that. Everybody knows the backstory on Harden, and, it didn't work out here when he wanted out. He's been 2 other stops. It didn't work out. And I don't know. With young guys, to me, you got to be real careful. That's all. And I'm sure they're going to think it through.
So what's the alternative, though? Because the alternative is you could trade
another direction, find other guys, and leave Harden out of the mix. That would be the.
But then you're going to be 11th in the West. I think the ceiling of Harden gets the Rockets into a play-in game, which at least brings some fans and some excitement, and
no doubt.
Yeah, they're in the middle.
Get you more wins.
Yeah,
there's no question.
And that's where it's like, to me, it's the middle. It's you're contending or you're terrible, and we've dealt with they're terrible for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Harden doesn't get them to contending, but at least like they get the one slot above where they are now, or at least 2 slots of, hey, they might make the play-in game. They might be interesting.
Final minute before we go to break, and we got C.J. Stroud coming up in the next segment. Can Harden say, okay, I won't? The guy wants the basketball.
Yeah,
that's the problem I'm concerned with. Is he still going to have that approach where it hinders the development of some of these young guys?
But which guys? Because Jalen Green might be able to play without the ball, whereas Şengün probably needs the ball, and then Kevin Porter Jr. might be gone. And so it might just work out where Jalen Green becomes this really good off-ball player playing with Harden, who is on ball. Şengün might be the only guy that's affected, which he could obviously turn into a really good player. The baby Jokic comparisons are there. Yeah. So do you have Harden on-ball games and Şengün games where you kind of have Şengün run point and have Harden off-ball? Yeah. Otherwise, I don't think Jabari Smith really, it affects him that much. It doesn't affect Tari, and some of these other guys I feel like are not going to be here.
Well, I mean, there'll be a nucleus of fans that definitely welcome Harden back. There's no doubt.
Right.
But there'll be a portion of the fan base that say, let's stay away, let's move on. Who knows what's going to happen? It will sell tickets.
Yeah, they're going to be decent.
Put more butts in the seats, and they're going to win more basketball games. If they're okay with dealing with that and any potential setbacks, but maybe he can help them in some areas, and he's at the point of his career where he's ready to go that direction. And maybe
the question is,
always behind him.
Without Harden, do you think that at the best, everything goes right for the Rockets, aside from obviously drafting Wemby? Can you win a championship in the next 4 years? And the answer is probably no.
No.
So if you can't,
better be in the playoffs. So.
Yeah. So if you can't win a championship in the next 4 years, that's the issue with Harden, is he's going to stop you from having that ceiling. Then what does it matter? The Harden is at least going to raise the floor. And so I think that's what the move is. Harden raises the floor, probably gets you in the playoffs. You keep building. And then 4 years from now, we know your floor is like a 7 seed. And then when Harden's deal is up, then the cap space clears. Your guys are better. Your young guys have developed. And now you put it together.
All right. We will find out in the days and weeks ahead. James Harden to the Rockets, definitely a big story in the offseason to follow if you're a Rockets fan. Hey, we're going to take a break here on Houston Sports Weekly. When we come back, we're going to dive into some Texans talk. We'll have some sound from earlier this week with rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. And we'll also hear from our Texans insider, Aaron Wilson, for click2houston.com. He was out at the media practice with the team the other day. Get his takes on some offseason moves and some signings and health updates as well on some players. So we'll dive into that. We'll take a short 2-minute break, and Houston Sports Weekly will be right back. All right, welcome back to Houston Sports Weekly podcast here on click2houston.com and KPRC2+. Randy and Ari with you. Real quick, we're going to get to some C.J. Stroud sound, Texans OTAs, way off, over 100 days away from the opener, but good to see some football out there.
Yeah, it's nice to see these guys working out. There's nothing that anyone should get super worried or excited about. Whoever quarterback is taking reps 1, 2 reps, that doesn't matter. It's like the first week of OTAs. Everybody relax. However, if we get into like September and Davis Mills is taking the first snap of week 1, I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah, late preseason's what I care about.
Right.
Like, where are things practice-wise going in that opener with Baltimore? Hey, C.J. Stroud spoke earlier this week at the open media session at OTAs, spoke for the first time since being drafted. Let's listen into some of that conversation for a couple of minutes. Texans rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. Check that out right now.
What's it like working with Davis and Case?
It's a blessing. It's been something that I definitely knew that I knew that I needed it. Just that guidance and that confidence that they've had, because they've both played in the league, been starters. So they've been very helpful, have been very appreciative and very supportive of everything. We have constant communication on and off the field. So I mean, it's been really great.
CJ, one of the highlights was that we got to see was a deeper ball to Tank. What's he kind of showing you early, and how is your relationship kind of developing with him?
Yeah, it's been going great. We've been hanging out in the hotel, just going over scripts, getting the plays down together. It was great to be not only just by myself in this, but with a great rookie class, not only just football players, but human beings. So Tank has done a great job, very vocal, wants to be better, wants to know what we like so he can run the route a certain way, wants to get right with the coaches. So he's just very, very in tune to what we want, and he wants to just be great. So it's amazing to be around somebody who's very like-minded. The one thing that kind of sticks out for me is just keep the main thing. If you take care of football, then everything will take care of itself. So right now, just trying to really just focus on ball. Everything else, I'm trying to do my best to have people figure things out for me, and of course trust people on my team and things like that. But for right now, man, it's just really, for me, football. I'm here all day, every day, and just trying to get better. So that's what probably the best advice I've gotten so far is just keep the main thing.
CJ, what's your relationship been like so far with D'Amico and feeding off the energy he's bringing?
Yeah, he's a young coach who knows how it is to play in this league and play for the Texans. So he knows a lot about the city of Houston, knows what comes with playing here, and I mean, he's just been great, very vocal. He's really funny too. So like, it's cool to have a coach that's not all stuck up all the time or like super mad. So. He's been amazing, though. Very transparent. Communication's been great. So, yeah, he's going to be a great head coach.
Hi, everybody. Hello from NRG Stadium, Methodist Training Center. Randy McAvoy, Chancellor Johnson, and our Texans insider for ClickToHouston.com, Aaron Wilson. Great to see you. We have had OTAs underway here today, and guys, we had 20 minutes to watch the guys, but a lot more guys than we saw during rookie camp. It was good to see the veterans out there, although we're missing a few, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you saw all the quarterbacks out there, all the receivers, every position was pretty much active today.
But all eyes were on what many people believe, not many people, should be the QB1, C.J. Stroud.
Right.
We saw him alongside Davis Mills and of course Case Keenum there. Davis Mills got majority of the first team reps. Obviously, it's only we're still May. We haven't got to Memorial Day yet, right? But
we could always have fun with
it. Of course. But something else that I'm looking forward to is the wide receiver room and how it develops over the course of this next offseason with a lot of young guys there. Xavier Hutchinson, the rookie, Tank Dell, Robert Woods being the veteran now, kind of taking over that role that Brandon Cooks had last year, and so on. So that's kind of the things that I'm watching on over the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah, everybody was sharing reps. It was Stroud, it was Mills, it was Case Keenum. Throwing to some receivers. Again, they're not even in pads or anything like that. But what'd you see out there that you liked?
Right. Some of my impressions. I see a nice natural throwing motion from C.J. Stroud. Kind of what you'd expect from him coming from the Big Ten Conference. Very precise passer. There is no pass rush, so we don't make any lasting judgments on these things. But
Super Bowl? You're not calling Super Bowl yet?
Not just yet. Maybe I will wait for August. He just looked smooth to me, and the quarterback pecking order, and this isn't a surprise. There have been inquiries about trades for Davis Mills, and they were told, per my sources, unavailable. So Davis Mills, for now, he is QB1. Just how long will he be QB1? I think eventually a changing of the guard under center.
All right. We saw some receivers out there. Tank Dell was out there. I've kept an eye on him for a few of those drills. He's a little guy, but man, that guy is fast.
Absolutely. I think one of his best attributes and the skill set that will translate at the next level is his separation, his route running. Yeah. Over the past couple of years when he was at University of Houston, he led the country in receptions and receiving touchdowns. The guy can play, but obviously size is a little bit of concern. He had a drop earlier, but he made up for it the next play there in 7-on-7 reps. But I'm excited to see how Bobby Slowick kind of gets him going within the offense.
Right, when you think about Tank Dell, one of the things that's going to be really telling, we won't know this until we get into contact drills. How does he escape from press coverage? Do they have to put him in motion because he is 165 pounds? But yeah, everything I'm seeing from him is just the same as when we were at his workout with his trainer. Just very sudden, very explosive, and like Chancellor says, when he makes a mistake, he tries not to make the same mistake twice. A few guys are missing. A little roll call here. John Mechie III, unfortunately, strained his hamstring. Fortunately, he's making a good comeback from leukemia that sidelined him his entire rookie season. Still on track for training camp. And a lot of guys are still out with injuries. Hassan Ridgeway and Thomas Booker also with soft tissue injuries. And then you have Kenyon Green coming off arthroscopic knee surgery this offseason. Yeah. Has gotten in better shape, and I think he's on track for training camp. Maybe we'll see him at some point this spring. And then guys that are veterans, their prerogative, it's voluntary. Laramie Tunsil, Steven Nelson, Dalton Schultz, all not here.
Yeah, quote, voluntary. It is voluntary.
Well, Aaron, what's your workout plan? Maybe you can help out Tank Dale go from 165. You look like you've been in the gym, man.
Can you help him out a little bit, or what?
He can have some of my weight. I'd love to give it to him. I'll try to get down again, lose a few, and yeah, been eating too well. But yeah, for Tank, I think don't bulk up at all. Just stay exactly like you are, because we're not talking about a 4'2", 4'3" guy. If anything, at 4'9" at 165, you wish he was even faster. But he's all about quickness, twitchy, and you can't teach the routes that he can run. But yeah, Tank Dell, an exciting player. And then we're just kind of looking at these guys. We're watching, looking for other things to emerge. Just looking over the running backs. Damian Pierce looks awful good, and having him back, a Pro Bowl alternate last season, I think that's the biggest part of this offense. Maybe he's the centerpiece.
And by the way, you're already sweating a lot. We're in the weight loss season here, now that we're in OTAs and hitting into the dog days of summer. I think we'll all lose a few pounds, huh? Hey, what do you guys take? And we come out here and they're doing simple drills, nothing special. We're just kind of doing the eyeball test, really, kind of our takeaways when we're talking about OTAs for sure.
For sure. For me, the biggest thing is, are the guys in shape so far, the guys who did decide to show up? And also, too, look at some of the rookies, right? How do they adjust to just the way they run things at the NFL level? Looking at C.J. Stroud, that throwing motion, in 7-on-7, I was actually talking to another reporter about it, like, is he willing to push the ball down the field with no pressure, right? Are guys able to get open when they're not being pressed up? So that's the little things, because once again, like, there's no pads, right? This is still kind of just the acclimating process of the offseason. So those are things that I'm kind of watching on really early on.
Absolutely. You think about what you're looking for combinations, who plays where, and how does this look. And one thing we did come away with this, Davis Mills took the first reps, and I think that's not only symbolic, but it's just literally he is still the QB1, and they're not just going to hand this job to C.J. Stroud. You're going to have something of a competition or him proving himself with some boxes he needs to check during the preseason. We're a long way away from them declaring him as the starter.
And I kind of think even like during minicamp OTAs, I think it's going to stay the same. I don't think we're going to see any movement until we get into the main training camp in late July.
Preseason games will be really telling, and I think at some point I would imagine Davis Mills would start against New England, but at some point maybe we see CJ start and see how does he look with the first team offense.
Then maybe see separation.
All gauging, can he start against the Baltimore Ravens or does Davis Mills start against the Ravens? That's what we're looking for.
I would not be surprised at all if it is Davis Mills on week 1 when they take on the Baltimore Ravens, especially on the road. Especially on the road like that, because if a guy's not ready, you don't want to kill a guy's confidence early. So, now it would be a great, if CJ Stroud is the quarterback, in week 1, that's a great sign because that means he did something right. But knowing everything that I know about Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans, who of course is calling the shots, I don't think they're just going to throw that guy in there really early because, like I said, it can actually damage your quarterback if he throws in there way too early, especially against a defense like the talent that a Baltimore Ravens team type has.
Yeah, mentally it could take a toll, man. If you're lost still in the offense, you're taking hits and don't know where you are. Hey, it's OTAs. We're allowed out here once a week over the next couple of weeks before they get to mini camps. Mandatory mini camp is the 12th and 13th, I believe. 13th, 14th, something like that of June. Then we'll see hopefully some more faces out here that aren't out here during OTAs. But I don't know, guys. It's good to be out here watching a little football. Even though there's no pads, they got it on. They're doing football things out here.
It's hot. That's my takeaway.
That's a big take today. I agree with you.
Looks like I'm hot too.
All right, Texas rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud meeting with the media earlier this week after an OTA workout. I really like the fact that he's he's leaning on some of these veteran receivers like Robert Woods, and in fact Woods is in these quarterback meetings, which is pretty cool, listening in as well. So he's just trying to get on the same page and soak it in, hanging around guys like Case Keenum and Davis Mills. He gave credit to both.
Yeah, it's good to see him learn from, Case Keenum's been in the league forever.
Yep.
He's got some veteran receivers. He probably needs more veteran receivers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He probably needs more weapons. I like Dalton Schultz. Robert Woods is probably not a wide receiver one, but he's going to have to be. Mm-hmm. And then maybe Tank Dell turns into an absolute weapon.
Tank Dell, watching him at practice, by the way, man, he's so little out there.
He's quick.
He is fast. And who was it? Davis Mills in his interview gave a shout out to Tank, said, man, this guy got speed and he can cut like he hadn't seen in a while. So he gave high marks to Tank Dell. And I liked watching the Hutchinson run some routes too, man.
It's kind of a big kid, yeah.
Too, so.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the latest on this week's Houston Sports Weekly podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Weighed in on the Astros, James Harden, and the Texans, hearing from C.J. Stroud. We'll do it again next week and every week here on KPRC2 Plus and click2Houston.com. For Ari, I'm Randy. We will talk to you next time.